Let him come in. Well, no, how to increase the sound.
We have to increase the volume of TV.
But where is the remote?
Potential. So long.
The Happy Prince.
See the story.
Once upon a time, a beautiful statue stood in the middle of a town square. It was the statue of a prince. His body was covered in shiny gold leaf, and his eyes and the dagger on his belt were ornamented with precious gemstones. From his place on the square, he could see everything going on around him. People called him the Happy Prince. One cold and windy night, a swallow wandered into the square. The other swallows had all gone south for the winter, but this one had gotten lost and was left behind. Circling the square, the swallow saw the statue of the Happy Prince.
It's too cold to fly tonight. I will stay here for the night.
As the swallow settled down, a drop of water fell on his head.
Oh, it's cold. Can it be raining?
The swallow glanced up and saw that the sky was clear. It wasn't raining at all.
How odd. Where did that drop of water come from then?
Curious, the swallow flew to the top of the statue. When he reached the top, he saw that the prince's eyes were filled with tears.
Huh? What? Why are you crying, Prince?
I'm crying because I am sad.
Why? How could you be sad?
I was once a happy prince, and all my days were filled with joy. Now, when I am a statue, I can look over the whole town. I see so much misery and poverty. Swallow, just take a look at that little house there.
Where?
The swallow looked at where the prince pointed. He saw an old rundown house. A sick child lay on the bed inside.
Oh, what can I do?
That child is very ill, but the family is too poor to buy the medicine she needs.
Oh, how sad. Oh,
Swallow, would you do something for me? Pluck out the ruby from my dagger and bring it to that house. If they sell it, they will have enough money to buy the medicine.
of course. I will do as you ask.
The swallow plucked out the ruby and carried it to the child's house. The following day, the swallow stayed in the square. He wanted to stay with the prince a little longer. In the afternoon, he flew up to the prince's shoulder to say farewell.
Goodbye, Prince. I must fly south now.
Swallow, can I ask for one final favor before you go? There is a young man living in an attic on that side of the village. He is writing a novel, but he is so poor.
Chasing that A and want to save time? Grammarly makes editing one-click simple. We can help make complex rewrites and
That he hasn't eaten anything in days.
Oh,
Can you please take one of my sapphire eyes and bring it to him?
your eye? Very well, Prince.
The swallow took one of the prince's eyes and flew to the writer in the attic. When he discovered the sapphire, the poor writer shed tears of joy because he knew he wouldn't starve. The swallow didn't go south that day, but he was very happy. The next day, the swallow tried to say goodbye to the prince once more.
Prince.
I'm so sorry, Swallow, but I have one last favor to ask of you. Do you see that girl selling matches in the street? Give her my other eye.
I can't do that. You will be blind then, Prince.
It doesn't matter. Please give my eye to that poor girl.
Oh.
The swallow took out the prince's last remaining eye and dropped it into the match girl's basket.
Where did this come from? Swallow. Thank you so much. And with this sapphire, I can stay warm this winter. Thank you so much.
Now that the prince had given away both of his eyes, he couldn't see anymore.
Thank you, Swallow. You have helped me very much. I know I have kept you back too long. Please, fly south now.
Oh, my Prince. I cannot leave you alone now. I will be your eyes.
The swallow had grown to love the prince for his generous heart and wanted to stay with him. From that day on, the swallow stayed by the prince and flew around the town, telling the prince about everything he saw.
Hey, I'll be back. Prince, I saw some homeless children living under a bridge. They will soon starve or freeze to death.
Please strip some gold leaf from my body and bring it to those children.
Yes, Prince.
Every day, the swallow would strip bits of gold from the prince's body and bring them to those who were ill or in need. As more and more people became happy, the prince's body grew more and more ugly. Winter came, and the swallow could feel his body freezing. One snowy day, he flew up to the prince's face and kissed him.
Prince, thank you, my prince. You have taught me the true meaning of happiness. Thank you.
As he said those words, the swallow fell to the ground and died.
My poor faithful swallow. Oh, you didn't fly south and died because of me. Even my gold cannot save you. Oh, my poor little swallow.
Tears flowed from the prince's empty eyes, and a cracking sound came from deep within his body. The cold winter winds passed, and the warm sunshine of spring filled the air. The villagers emerged into the square to drink in the sunlight and saw what had become of the prince's state. They pointed their fingers at him, saying,
Ah, look at that. What has happened to the statue?
It looks dreadful. We're like a homeless prince, not a happy one. You know?
This statue is making the whole square look grubby. But we've got to tear it down right away. Yeah, tear it down!
The villagers tore down the statue and cast it into the fire to melt it down. Oddly, as the statue melted away in the heat, the prince's lead heart remained. Looking down over the earth, God turned to one of his angels and said,
Bring me the two most beautiful things in the world.
Yes, Lord.
The angel floated down to earth and brought back the frozen body of the swallow and the prince's lead heart. God was very pleased.
The people do not understand what true happiness really is. The swallow and the prince will live eternally in heaven.
Yes.
The prince and the swallow lived on happily ever after in heaven. But sometimes they would look down upon the world and shed tears for the people below.
Okay, so got an understanding of the story. What is it talking about? What are the morals? What do you learn? How should you be in life? Like the prince was? How was the prince? Big-hearted and What else did he do? Generous, helpful. What else? Kind, yeah. Okay. What else? By sacrificing, he gave up his life, and so did the swallow. What else did you learn? The prince. The swallow helps the prince, but then later the swallow herself feels that I shouldn't go. So what do you learn from that? That if you have done a good deed, there are others also who will learn from you. Or you also could learn from someone else. Who the छुपा हुआ क्यों है? बस यही मत बैठना. You just all you have to do is not sit at this angle. और कहाँ मतलब? Reply. Okay, so we do it from the book now. Okay, and same as last time. Even he is not God, but he's a new student. But आज पहला दिन है, so I've allowed him. But what did I tell you also?
Last time. Not bring the book.
So this is the first and the last time I told you.
I kept it, but I removed it for studying in my life.
Next time you will. तेरा है ना? उसको देना है तो उसको दे दो. तेरा है तो खुद के पास बराबर सीधा पकड़. You had got last time?
Last
You
time you
also-
had just used behind now. This time you had got it.
So means I have to use BI only every time. Okay, so the happy prince. Sit with him for today. तू book वापस वैसे ही रखा, उसको दे दे. चल, उसको दे दे. No, now you give him the book. Why are you keeping it at an angle?
You will be there fast.
क्यों? हाँ तो उसको बिठाने तो मैं बिठाऊंगी ना. मैंने बोला है नहीं तो you are very keen on helping him, then help him by reminding him to get the book, no? Okay. And again, like last time, I will stop anytime, any moment, and you have to read exactly from the next word. If the next word is the, you read from the. If the next word is you read from in the middle of the sentence. Not one word before, not one word after. Yeah. Even those who don't have the book, you all are sitting in front with a book, right? You all won't be exempted, huh? You also. Okay. So the Happy Prince was a beautiful statue. He was covered with gold and had sapphires for eyes. Sapphires are blue stones. And had sapphires for eyes and a ruby in his sword. Why did he want to part with all the gold that he had and his precious stones? High above the city, on a tall column, stood the statue of the Happy Prince. He was gilded all over with thin leaves of fine gold. Gilded means covered with gold, like he was gold plated. He was gilded all over with thin leaves of fine gold. For eyes, he had two bright sapphires, and a large red ruby glowed on his sword hilt. The hilt means like the edge, the handle of the sword. You can see it over there. That is the hilt. One night there flew over the city a little swallow. His friends had gone away to Egypt 6 weeks before, but he had stayed behind, so he decided to go to Egypt too. Okay, swallows are migratory birds, so all his other the other birds had already gone, and this one bird only was left behind. So where was he heading towards? Egypt. All day long he flew, and at night time he arrived at the city. Where shall I put up? He said. I hope the town has made preparations. Where shall I put up means? Yes. Put up is what type of grammatical thing? That's what are the phrasal verb. Where shall I put up? So you won't say where shall I stay, you say where shall I put up? Where shall I put up? He said. I hope the town has made preparations. Then he saw the statue on the tall column. You continue.
I will put up there, he cried. It is a fine position with plenty of fresh air. So we alighted just between the feet of the happy prince.
Oh, okay. Alighted means?
Stayed or went
down. Alight. Okay, so he thought which is a good place near the foot of the happy prince. So he went over there, just between the feet of the happy prince. I have a golden bedroom, he said softly to himself as he looked round, and he prepared to go to sleep. But just as he was putting his head under his wing, a large drop of water fell on him. What a curious thing, he cried. There is not a single cloud in the sky. The stars are quite clear and bright. And yet it is raining. So what happened? The drop fell on him and he thought, it's raining. He looked up at the sky, there were no clouds. So where were those drops coming from? From the happy prince. Then another drop fell. What is the use of a statue if I cannot keep the rain off? He said. But I must look for a good chimney pot, and he determined to fly away. So he thought of looking for a chimney pot where he thought that I would be safer over there and warm also, no? But before he had opened his wings, a third drop fell, and he looked up and saw, what did he see? The eyes of the happy prince were filled with tears, and tears were running down his golden cheeks. His face was so beautiful in the moonlight that the little swallow was filled with pity. Who are you? He said. I am the happy prince. Why are you weeping then? Asked the swallow. You have quite drenched me. Drenched? Yes, you made me wet. You get wet in the rain, that is called getting drenched. So he says that you have quite drenched me. When I was alive and had a human heart, answered the prince, answered the statue, I did not know what tears were, for I lived in the palace where sorrow is not allowed to enter. My courtiers called me the happy prince, and happy indeed I was. So I lived, and so I died. And now that I am dead, and they have set me up here so high that I can see the ugliness and all the misery of my city. And though my heart is made of lead, yet I cannot choose but weep. So what did he say? when I was alive, I was a prince. And why was I happy? Because in the palace, they allowed no sadness to come near me. I got everything that I wanted. Next year, you all have a similar story which is based on Buddha. Then Buddha, his name was Siddhartha Gautama. So when he was a prince, again, it was the same thing that he didn't know what sadness was. So when he went out, he was riding a horse, and at that time he saw some scenes which moved him. Like he saw a dead body.
You had to
Yes.
keep a dead body.
He saw somebody way to go away. What?
The real story was that he had to stay in the palace because if he went out and saw the sorrow, some priest said that he would go away. Like in peace. And the priest said that he will become a successful king, or else he will leave the palace
and go. Correct. So they were all in a very protected environment, and usually that's what happens in a palace. You get everything that you want, especially when you are a prince. So when he went out, that time he came to know. He saw, you were saying, no, something, an old man, something.
a dead body.
Yes, so he saw an old man, some diseased person, a dead body. So then he saw the realities of life.
Then he decided to become a good man.
Yes. So similar story that happened with this happy prince. So afterwards he was made into a statue. But then he said, even though my heart is of lead, still I cry, I feel bad because now I'm out in the open, I can see so many things happening that are sad. Then, what? Is he not solid gold? Said the swallow to himself. He was far too polite to make any personal remarks. Far away, continued the statue in a musical voice, far away in a little street there is a poorhouse. One of the windows is open, and through it I can see a woman seated at a table. Her face is thin and worn. Worn means tired. And she has coarse. Coarse means rough. When you do a lot of work with your hand, how do they become? Hard and rough. So she says her hands are, she has coarse red hands, all pricked by the needle, for she is a seamstress. So she does stitching, and so because her hand keeps getting poked each time with a needle, her hands have become red and they're hurt. She is embroidering flowers on a satin gown for the loveliest of the queen's maids of honor. What is she embroidering? Embroidery is what? No, embroidery is stitching with colored, like you'll have a dress where you will have flowers and all of different colors, which will be made of thread. So that's like stitching in a design with different colors. So she's embroidering on a satin gown for the loveliest of the queen's maids of honor. So one of the queens, just next to the queen, they would be standing. So she's making embroidering on a gown honor to wear at the next court ball. Court ball is the dance. In a bed in the corner of the room, her little boy is lying ill. Whose little boy? The seamstresses. He has a fever and is asking his mother to give him oranges. His mother has nothing to give him but river water. So he is crying. So she was a poor lady and the boy was crying. Swallow, swallow, little swallow, will you not bring her the ruby out of my sword hilt? My feet are fastened. Fastened means tied to this pedestal and I cannot move. Pedestal is what? The column on which the statue is. That stand. Now how does a swallow respond? I am waited for in Egypt, said the swallow. My friends are flying up and down the Nile. Nile is the river Nile. My friends are flying up and down the Nile and talking to The large lotus flowers, soon they will go to sleep. So he wanted to join his friends back there. There is 9. The prince asked the swallow to stay with him for one night and be his messenger. What did the prince say? Just be here for one night and be my messenger. The boy is so thirsty and the mother is so sad, he said. I don't think I like boys, answered the swallow. I want to go to Egypt. You continue.
But the happy prince looked so sad that the little swallow was sorry. It is very cold here, he said. But he agreed to stay with him for one night and be his messenger. Thank you, little swallow, said the prince. The swallow picked out the great ruby from the prince's sword and flew away with it in his wake over the roofs of the town. He passed by the cathedral tower where the white marble angels were sculptured.
Cathedral is the church tower. Okay? Were sculptured. Okay. You continue.
He passed by the palace and heard the sound of dancing. A beautiful girl came out on the balcony with her lover. I hope my dress will be ready in time for the state ball. She said, I have ordered flowers to be embroidered on it, but the seamstresses are so lazy.
So what is she saying? That these seamstresses means the ladies who are stitching. So they are so lazy, but actually is that the fact? They're not lazy, but even they have their own problems. So the child is not well here in this case. Then you continue.
He passed over the river and saw the lanterns hanging on the masts of ships. At last, he came to the poor woman's house and looked in. The boy was tossing feverishly on his bed, but the mother had fallen asleep. She was so tired. In he walked and laid a great ruby on the table beside the woman's thimble. Then
Thimble is what? Thimble, you know, when they stitch, it's like a round ring that they put in their finger so that the finger doesn't get hurt. Okay?
And what is mast?
Mast of the ship, the cloth.
Then he flew
The
gently
sails type, no, that we got. Yes, then he flew gently.
round the bed, fanning the boy's forehead with his wings. How cool and safe, said the boy. I must be getting better, and he sank into a delicious slumber.
Delicious slumber.
Which is happy.
No, slumber is sleep. Okay, so he got into a good sleep.
Then the swallow flew back to the
देखो वापस भी पूछ सकती हूँ. And if I ask him again, you will not keep your finger there to show him.
Then the swallow flew back to the happy prince and told him what he had done. It is curious, he thought, but I feel quite warm now, although it is so cold.
So the boy was feeling better now. And what did the swallow do?
But the prince on the forehead of
Yes. So it fanned him, and then the swallow flew back to the happy prince and told him. And what does the swallow say? It is curious, he remarked, but I feel quite warm now, although it is cold. So which means what had happened now? He had done a good deed, right? So that's why he was feeling warm. He was feeling happy.
That is because you have done a good action, said the prince, and the little swallow began to think, and then fell asleep. Thinking always made him sleepy. When day broke, he flew down to the river.
And day broke. And day broke means
When
But
the day
it's
ends,
Huh?
he died. When the
The
sun
day
rises.
broke, the sun rose in the morning. When the day broke, he flew down.
And had a bath. Tonight I go to Egypt, said the swallow, and he was in high spirits at the prospect.
What does it mean by he was in high spirits at the prospect?
He was
Go
excited.
Keep that pen aside. कुछ भी. Continue.
He visited all the monuments and sat a long time on top of the church. When the moon rose, he flew back to the happy prince. Have you any commissions from Egypt? He cried.
For Egypt.
For Egypt. I am just starting. Swallow, swallow, little swallow,
Swallow.
said the prince. Will you stay with me one night longer? I am waiting for in Egypt, answered the swallow.
Swallow.
Swallow, swallow, little swallow, said the prince.
And you are only getting all those words. You're reading it wrong, that's why.
Far away, across the city, I see a young man in a garret. What's a garret?
That is the attic. In the attic is what the topmost place where you keep it for storing things and all that. So he says that I see one person over there.
He is leaning over a desk covered with paper, and in the glass by his side there is a bunch of withered violets.
Withered violets mean violets are flowers and they are dried flowers. Okay, you all continue.
His hair is brown and crisp, and his lips are red as a pomegranate. And he has a large and dreamy eyes. He is trying to finish a play for the director of the theater, but he is too cold to write anymore. There is no fire in the cave, and hunger has made him ill.
What has happened to this man? He is trying to do something, he's not there, he doesn't have any food to eat, and there is no fire for him to keep himself warm or to cook any food. So he is in the fireplace. Then I will wait with you. Yeah, continue.
I will wait with you one night longer, said the swallow, who really had a good heart. He asked if he should take another rupee to the young playwright. Alas, I have no rupees now, said the prince. My eyes are all that I have left. They are made of rare sapphires, which were brought out of India 1,000 years ago. He ordered the swallow to pluck out one of them and take it to the playwright. He will sell it to the playwright. He will sell it to a jeweler and buy firewood and finish his play instead. Dear Prince, said the swallow, I can't do that, and he began to
So why did he begin to weep? Why did the swallow say that I cannot take it?
because he had a
Because?
was his hands.
Yes. Because what you should know what?
Because you would lost his eye. That's what you're asking.
I don't know what I'm asking. You tell me what I was asking.
He was weeping because he didn't want to pluck his eye.
He didn't want to pluck the eye. And this was the second eye. Right? So he said, I'm not
Because he would
cannot
be blind.
He would become blind. So he said, I cannot do that.
That was the second
Yeah. Then
Swallow, swallow, little swallow, said the prince, do as I command you. So the swallow plucked out the prince's eye and flew away to the young man's garret. It was easy enough to get in, as there was a hole in the roof. Through this he darted and came out into the room. The young man had his head buried in his hands, so he did not hear the flutter of the bird's wings. And when he looked up, he found a beautiful sapphire lying on the lighted violet.
Withered means
Right.
dried.
Without violence, I am beginning to be appreciated, he cried. This is from some great admirer. Now I can finish my play, and he looked quite happy. The next day, the swallow flew down to the harbor. He sat on the mast of the large vessel and watched the sailor working. I am going
Vessel
to
means ship.
I am going to Egypt, cried the swallow. But nobody minded, and when the moon rose, he flew back to the happy prince. I came to bid you goodbye, he cried. Swallow, swallow, little swallow, said the prince. Will you not stay with me one night longer? It's winter, answered the swallow. And the snow will soon be here. In Egypt, the sun is warm and green palm trees, and the crocodiles lie in the mud and look lazily about them. In the square below, said the happy prince.
So what is he saying here? Why can't I wait over here?
Because snow is
That's what
also
also. Yes. And where does he want to go, Arman?
Egypt,
Why?
because it is warm there,
And why doesn't he want to stay here?
but it is cold here.
It's cold, it's going to also get cold and snowing there. Then,
In the square below, said the happy prince, there stands a little matchstick girl. There stands a little matchstick girl. She had a
little match girl.
little match girl. She has let her matches fall in the gutter and they all are spoiled. Her father will beat her if she does not bring home some money. And she is crying. She has no shoes or stockings and her little head is bare. Pluck out my other eye and give it to her. And my father will not beat her.
So what he gave to that playwright was the first eye. Now he gave the second eye to this little match girl. My father will beat her. How much more pages are there? A big chapter. Given the reported three chapter is quite great.
No.
You are man. You are man. He doesn't harass me like you. तेरे को हर चीज से प्रॉब्लम होगा, but the problem is you only.
मुझे गर्मी लगेगा वो प्रॉब्लम.
Boring chapter नहीं है. Emotional वाले.
और मुझे तो अरे यार बहुत मुझे लग रहा है वो बेचारा सालों मर गया उसका क्या रहा बनने का क्या है अबे टर्की का बैंड है वो क्या करना
अरे यार मैं आगे से मुझे गर्मी हो रही है वो आगे भी खाना नहीं है ये आगे तक नहीं यार आपको नहीं चाहिए मुझे मान नहीं है और चीज कुछ
वो ये तरह की भी क्यों रख सकते
तो है कि नहीं है वो है ना जो क्या निकला
मैं मुझे एक सेकंड लगेगा ना सब लोग
अरे कौन से
संडे को टेस्ट चलेगा
हम लोग लेबर चले
हम इधर नहीं बैठते अरे हम इधर थोड़ी बैठते हैं हम उधर बैठते हैं वो वाली क्लास में
मैं तो इसी टेस्ट
मैं तो बुलाने वाला था
स्कॉलर
ऐसे
सब बोलता पढ़ाई
क्वाड्रिलैटरल्स को अभी कल
कल ही खत्म हुआ है
मैं तो आपने नहीं पढ़ा
मारुस
ताली मार क्यों भाई मेरे रूम में आ रहा
इजी ना फॉर्मूला
ओ भाई भाई ओए
मैं तो बोल रहा हूँ कल परसों ही खत्म हुआ है
अरे कल
खड़गे चला ले
अरे आज
मैं टेस्ट ही नहीं ले रहा हूँ मैं ट्रायंगल्स का भी हाथ भी नहीं लगा ट्रायंगल लाइन से लाइन लगा
चले ना 2 दिन बचे तो पूरा क्या
मेरे सोसाइटी वाले पीछे लग गए कुछ करो करना है कुछ करना है
तभी मंडी में चेक
हमें प्ले बना कर भेजने को बोलती है
अभी कुछ नहीं
सामने से पूछा कि बेटा तुम प्ले बनाओ हमें डायरेक्ट भी मुझे करना है साउंड भी मुझे देना है एडिटिंग भी करना है
वो हो गया ये रिवीजन क्वेश्चन साइंस की पेंसिल है
देखो जल्दी कर
बेचारा पढ़ाई कर हाँ पेंसिल पे दोस्ती काटी रखी ये पेंसिल लेने जो भी पीछे का चाटा रखा अरे एक का क्या क्या
ये ले जामिन से सही पढ़ाई नहीं करता है क्या क्या नहीं करता
देखो बोले एक हफ्ते तक डायलॉग आ रहा क्या डायलॉग से तो पुराना है अरे सुना मत
हम याद कर रहे हैं हम खोल उसके अंदर डालते हैं
आज भाई वो ऐसे ऐसे करते हैं खराब हो जाता है पेंसिल
निकलेगा
निकल जाता है रब करेंगे तो निकल जाएगा नहीं उसकी स्किन ही ऐसी वियर्ड है ड्राइंग करेंगे विहान के हाथ के ऊपर
ये बॉल पेन है वो बालों के कारण हो जाता है क्या
बालों में पार्टिकल स्प्रेड हो जाता है
भाई इसको दाढ़ी वाली आ रही है जैसे भी और मैं भी
एक का प्यूबर्टी देती नहीं है एक का प्यूबर्टी खत्म भी हो जाती है
अरे अरमान भी है हमारे साथ
मॉडर्न आउटफिट भी शेप
बच्चे
हाँ भाई शेफ आ गया तो ज्यादा दाढ़ी वाली कबर पे
एक साथ से सब हो गया
बड़ी अच्छी तरीके से रखा आपने
मैं 15 साल को
मेरी बुक
ये
देखी है
खोल के बैठा था इससे तो
मैंने
मैं
कहा शेप कर दिया
पढ़ो
मैंने लास्ट दिसंबर में कहा इससे
हाँ।
पढ़ गई और
मेरी भी
2 महीने नहीं हुए मेरी 4 महीने हो गए
सब पढ़
में पढ़
गई
गई
आज का एक ही सब
रेड और दूर को आ गया दूरी नहीं आ गई
मेरे अकेले हटा
वो मार रहा है नहीं लगा
थोड़ी देर स्वेट हो जाएगा स्वेट हो जाएगा थोड़ी देर
अरे ब्रो कैसे कूद रहा है ऐसा चल के मैं हाथ में लगा लिख नहीं पाऊंगा लास्ट वर्ष मिलिया में
तो लड़का बेटा
लास्ट वर्ष
क्लास में
किसका
अच्छा नहीं ज्यादा बच्चे हैं
कौन सब किसको देख रहे अरे मेरे को क्लास में थोड़ी लग रहा है मैं क्लास हाईएस्ट है मैथ्स
हमारा स्लो है
अरमान अरमान नहीं आया
चल
ये सूर्यवंशी आएगा अच्छा ऐसे बस ये
कोऑर्डिनेटर्स में मैं
और लाइन में एंगल्स कर
लाइन में उसका एक अलग अलग होता है लाइन में निकल के चला के लिए
अरे हमारा
कोऑर्डिनेटर्स का लाइन में
क्लास में ये
मेरा एग्जाम का रिजल्ट नहीं मिल रहा।
आ गया ना
इंग्लिश का पेपर
भैया कल इंग्लिश का पेपर दो ना भैया।
मुझे भी चाहिए।